Welcome back to Hockey Eastern Ontario's Rule of the Week, where each week we take a rule from the Hockey Canada rulebook and break it down for our officials, our coaches, and our players so that they can better understand the rule and how it's applied in a game situation. Slew-Footing. Do you know the criteria for slew-footing? And do you know the difference between a double minor for slew-footing and a match penalty for slew-footing? We got some videos to show you. Stay tuned. So this week we're going to talk about slew-footing, but before we do that, just a quick reminder that the HEO referee store has now been set up. You can see the link below. It's also in the description if you'd like to go in there and order some merchandise. This is for officials only with the HEO Officiating Program. Could be a nice gift for Christmas or for a birthday. Okay, let's talk about slew-footing. Rule 8.8, slew-footing. Slew-footing occurs when a player uses a leg or a foot to knock, drag, or sweep an opposing player's feet from under them, or pushes another player's upper body backward with an arm or elbow, and at the same time, with a forward motion of the leg, knocks, drags, or sweeps that player's feet from under them. A double minor penalty will be assessed to any player who slew-foots an opponent. A match penalty at the discretion of the referee based on the degree of violence of impact, including the impact with the ice, may be assessed to any player who slew-foots an opponent. A match penalty will be assessed to any player who injures an opponent by a slew-footing infraction that would otherwise call for a double minor penalty. So there's an important criteria here. Either a player can use their legs to push a player backwards and trip them up that way, or they can use their arm and their leg to push them backwards. Either would qualify as a slew-footing penalty. It's also important to note that there is no major in a game misconduct penalty for slew-footing. It is either a double minor penalty or a match penalty. There is no minor penalty for slew-footing either. This is consistent with some other rules like spearing, for example, where you can also only call a double minor or a match penalty. What's the difference between the double minor and the match penalty? Well, we can take a look at one of the interpretations. The only interpretation for this rule says that serious consideration for a match penalty should be paid when an offending player is in motion, otherwise skating, while committing this foul. The degree of violence of impact with the ice criteria and intent of the offending player will provide valuable considerations when a referee makes the decision of whether a match penalty is warranted under this rule. So there is the definitions for a double minor and a match penalty for slew-footing. Let's show you a couple of examples of what this actually looks like in a game situation. In this example, I'd like you to watch this player right here who's going to be slew-footed and this player right here who is going to do the slew-footing penalty. You can see here he comes around, the player in white wraps the stick around and dumps him on the back of his head, okay? This is a really good example of a slew-footing penalty. We'll watch it again. You can see as he skates towards him, so he's in motion, the offending player is in motion. He wraps the stick around him here. Now you see the right leg behind. He's going to use that leg to dump him over, and you can see him fall on the back of his head, right? Very dangerous hockey play. Because the player is in motion when he does the slew-footing infraction, and because the player hits the ice hard on the back of his head, this is going to be a match penalty for slew-footing. Next example. In this video, we're going to be watching this player here in white, who's going to commit the slew-footing infraction against this player here in blue. So you can see as they come up towards the bench, he's going to wrap that stick around the player in blue and use that right leg as leverage to pull the player from blue down. Now you'll notice the player in blue as he falls is going to hit pretty hard, his head on the ice here. Really dangerous play. We'll watch it again. Player in white wraps that stick around here. He's getting ready to use that back right leg for leverage to pull the player. He's going to pull it forward to pull that player back and drop him down pretty hard. Once again, this is a very dangerous play. Because the player in white actually uses his stick to wrap around the other player and then uses his right leg as leverage to pull the player back, this is going to be a slew-footing penalty. Because the player is in motion when he commits this infraction, we're going to look at a match penalty for this given the dangerousness of the play. This video is going to be a little bit more difficult to see given the distance and some of the pixelation as we try to get in close, but we're going to be watching this player who's skating up the boards with the puck and this player here in white who's going to be committing the infraction. So we'll watch again right here. He wraps the stick around and then dumps him on the back of his head. We'll get in close, but again, it's not as clear because of the pixelation of the video, but you can see the player in white here. He's going to wrap that stick around the player, and in this case it looks like he's going to use his left leg to then pull the player over the top. Now watch the player in blue's head where it hits. Bang, right on the ice. You can see why this is a really dangerous play. The player in blue goes down very hard on the back of their head. This is why we need to call these infractions. Again, this would be a match penalty because the player in white is in motion when he lays the hit, and because of the intensity that the player hits the ice and where he hits the ice on the back of his head. Unfortunately, I don't have any double minor penalties to show you because typically when we're sent slew-footing penalties, they are match penalties. What I can tell you is a slew-footing double minor would be one that, say, occurs in front of the net. Both players are standing up, neither is in motion, and say a defense person pulls down the other player in a slew-footing motion. The intensity of the action is not severe. The person falls on their back, say, rather than the back of their head. They don't fall hard. This is what we're looking at for a double minor penalty. But as the interpretation said, when the player who's committing the infraction is in motion, we should seriously be looking at a match penalty for that infraction. So there you have it, a little bit about slew-footing. If you have any questions about this rule or any of the rules in our Hockey Canada rulebook, please, please, please do not hesitate to reach out. My contact information is below. You can also feel free to reach out to your district referee-in-chief or your association referee-in-chief. They'll be more than happy to help you as well. Finally, you can reach out to the referee-in-chief of Hockey Eastern Ontario. His name is John Reed, and he's a real nice guy. He'll be happy to answer any questions you have as well. Before we get going, just a reminder to please like this video. If you do like this video, subscribe to the channel so you can get all the weekly content that we produce here as part of this series. Until next week, have a safe and wonderful week, and we'll see you back here real soon. All the best.